Welcome back to the Mason Clan. On this episode, you're joining us on our travels over the new year, with a few days in Ghent and then up to Amsterdam. We've got the tunnel booked to leave the UK on the 27th of December. It takes us usually between 5 and 8 hours to get down there from Lancashire, and it's never really a smooth run. The M6 always likes to chuck us a curveball. For this trip, our two sons are joining us, who are 18 and 24. Well, who wouldn't have a free holiday on mum and dad? We also have our two spaniels with us who travel on French pet passports. There's a separate check-in area at the tunnel where you take your dogs to have their chips scanned and their passports or animal health certificates checked. The tunnel really is the easiest option if you're travelling with pets. You literally drive onto the train, 40 minutes later you're driving off and you're into France, straight onto the roads. If you haven't driven on the continent before, don't worry about it. It's straightforward. We find the road network to be very good and a lot less busy than you find in the UK. So on we go to Ghent for our first stop.
So we're staying at Urban Gardens in Ghent. We arrived here late last night after reception had closed and they'd allocated us a pitch. It's entry via automatic barrier and our number plate had been recognised by that, so we got straight in, headed to our pitch to find somebody was on it. Now, we'd booked a hard standing pitch because travelling during the winter we're a bit more savvy. The hard standing aren't great here, and then it took us about half an hour to go round and try and find another pitch that was actually safe for us to get on, and we've ended up putting our baker's baskets down that we use under our tyres when it's muddy. I'll show you a bit more later.
In the morning we went to speak to reception and they hadn't got a clue who was on our pitch, so they were off to find out who it was. For us, we were heading into Ghent, and about a 10-minute walk from the campsite is a free shuttle bus into the city. The buses seat about 20 passengers and there's two running on a circuit, so if you don't get on one, don't worry, there'll be another along shortly. On the official city guide, it claims that Ghent is Europe's best kept secret. Now, it wasn't so much of a secret today. We were there while the Christmas markets were still on and the city was very busy. It reminds us very much of Bruges, but it's probably on a bit of a bigger scale than that. The tourist office is housed in the old fish market, which sits on the River Leve. Our oldest son is acting as our tour guide for the day. First stop was at the castle, and in 1949 a group of Ghent students occupied it to protest against the increase in beer prices and the fact that policemen were to replace their helmets with blue caps. According to the students, this would make them harder to tell apart from posties and taxi drivers. And this is still commemorated now on November the 16th with the annual Castle of the Counts procession. The Vrijdagsmarkt is a prominent square in Ghent with executions taking place here in the past. There's a few prominent buildings here, the Onhuis with the statue of Jacob van Aardvet in the middle, and going across to Torreken. This building on the corner dates back to the 14th century, so it gives you an idea of how the city might have looked in medieval times. There are many alleyways to take you away from the crowded routes, and one of those is Graffiti Street. If you're looking for a meal, there is something to suit everybody's taste. We had Middle Eastern at lunch and Thai in the evening. There are many impressive buildings dominating the Ghent skyline. Lucas had us visiting plenty of churches, but the most impressive has to be St Barbo's Cathedral. And if you're there over the Christmas period, do take the time to go and see their nativity scene. It's really quite special. As we came out of the cathedral, night had fallen and Ghent looked even prettier. Our purchases were of course some fabulous chocolates and a big lump of cheese off the Christmas market. Overnight there'd been more rain, so we knew, listening to our neighbours, we had one go at getting off our pitch. The bread baskets were down, Stephen was at the wheel, and we were ready to go. Speaking to the campsite staff, they do tell us there are plans to improve the site, and this includes a motorhome air, which is definitely what's needed if you're planning to visit here in the winter. But for us, we're off the muddy pitch and we're on to Amsterdam. The journey to Amsterdam took us less than 2 hours, although the sat-nav was saying 3. It's a nice straightforward journey and the motorways are very good. At some point we're on 6-lane motorways. The only time we really picked up any traffic was around the Antwerp area. We were travelling up to Amsterdam on the Friday of the New Year weekend, so we expected the traffic to be a little heavy, and we were still moving, so what more could we ask for? There were plenty of lorries on the road, which did slow things down a little around Antwerp. But once we got away from the city, there was views of what we'd expect to see in the Netherlands: windmills and dikes. There are no toll costs involved for the journey between Calais and Ghent and Amsterdam. At Amsterdam, we're staying at Camp in Zeeburg, which is a nice site we've used before. Although it's only a short drive from the motorway, don't worry about road noise, it isn't a problem. The campsite is on one of the islands of the city, so access is along one of the canal side roads. The campsite was full whilst we were there over New Year, with people even stopping in tents. There are accommodation options that the site rent out, such as wagons and pods. The facilities are very good and plentiful here, and it includes an on-site bar and restaurant. This is what I call a hard standing pitch. Urban Gardens, take note. Our first evening in Amsterdam was taken up by the dog's visit to the vets for the worming tablet. This needs to be done between 1 and 5 days before you return to the UK. I'd booked the appointment in advance. The campsite's well lit at night and there's good walkways around it to the toilet block. This is quite big, and within there's a laundry and there's vending machines, as well as your toilets and your showers and your washing up. We were on pitch K7, which is a waterside pitch. The first morning we awoke to a gorgeous sunrise. Now, there's lots of bird life around here, so watch out when you open the door that there's not a heron just wandering on past. The campsite reception sells tickets for public transport, and I'd recommend downloading the GVB app, which gives real-time information on the trams and buses. From the campsite entrance, you need to walk up onto the bridge to reach the tram stops. There's one to the right, which takes you towards the central station, and this one we're heading to is Flevo Park, which is to the left on the bridge. It's about a 5-minute walk to Flevo Park tram station. Do watch out for cyclists in Amsterdam. They are king and they will not slow down for you. So this is the tram station for the campsite. The one you're looking for is called Flevo Park. So the trams just come out from the city and it'll loop round and we'll pick it up off this side to head into the city. The trams are well used for getting in and out of the city, so you may end up standing for some of your journey. We enjoyed some good meals whilst in Amsterdam. One lunchtime we ate at Brasserie Keizer, which is just across the road from where the museums are. We ate from the lunchtime menu, which was of good value, and it was a good quality meal. On New Year's Eve, we ate at the Midtown Grill, which is a steakhouse restaurant in the Marriott Hotel. We always try and book somewhere special for either New Year's Eve or New Year's Day for a meal. The restaurant was full and we'd had our table booked since September. If you plan to visit at New Year, be aware that the public transport stops at 8 p.m. Beyond the city firework display at midnight, people are letting off their own in the streets too. The art museums are clustered together, and we'd booked the Van Gogh Museum a couple of months in advance. This was sold out whilst we were there. And also we booked for the Rijksmuseum, which we booked online the night before we visited. The Rijksmuseum is a museum of Dutch history and art, and it houses many great paintings. The most popular being Rembrandt's Night Watch. The works of art and history are housed over 4 floors, and the building itself is worth a look as well. As you'd expect, the museums did restrict what you could carry around the exhibits. There were cloakrooms available, which we used. We booked an audio tour at the Van Gogh Museum, which was easy to follow and use. On a previous trip to Amsterdam, we visited Anne Frank's house. Our top tip for this is book the introductory talk, as this gives you fast track entry to the house afterwards. As I mentioned, public transport stops on the evening of New Year's Eve at around 8 p.m. However, the night buses start up at approximately 1:30 in the morning of your New Year's Day, and that's how we got back to the campsite from the city, arriving back at about 2:30, 3 a.m. New Year's Day was a lazy day for us, and we took a walk around the island with the dogs. There's very little traffic here, and plenty of other people were out enjoying the sunshine. The 2nd of January saw us leaving Amsterdam and heading to Dunkirk for a ferry home. It was a quiet journey down to Dunkirk, with a few heavy rain showers on the way. We're crossing with DFDS, who we always find to be very good, and Dunkirk is always our preferred choice as it's quieter than Calais. Once through passport control, we were quickly boarded with just 5 minutes to take the dogs for a wee before they were on the ferry. They were staying in the motorhome in the hold, as this crossing is normally 90 minutes. The crossing actually ended up taking 5 hours because of Storm Henk. Must say, DFDS were brilliant. There was complimentary drinks, and they allowed us to go below deck a couple of times to check on our dogs. Instead of arriving back at Dover mid-afternoon, we got back there early evening with our drive back up to Lancashire ahead of us. We hope this video shows that even if time is short, you can still get out there and have an adventure in the winter.